I can hardly believe this. This is my 5th take on this video. There has been technical problems every single time. So I am hoping that I'm going to get it done this time. And I apologize that I haven't posted for a long time, but this is why I'm fighting my way through this one video. So anyway, there is a sister named Wendy who had something that she wanted to make me aware of concerning the calendar. And it has to do with the way things are lining up in the skies. And her question is, could we possibly be a month ahead celebrating the Passover? Well, I've got to tell you, when I first read it, my first thought was, oh my goodness, here we go again. Because the calendar is a hotly debated topic. And it is a hotly debated topic because I think that we are still in the situation that's described in Lamentations chapter 2, verse 6. The Lord Yahweh has caused the appointed feasts and Sabbaths to be forgotten in Zion. So if you look at our current canon of scriptures, the 66 books that make up the current Bible that most people are using, there is not, well, let me just put it this way. In the book of Exodus and Leviticus, it does tell us, for instance, that the Passover happens in the 1st month, that the Feast of Tabernacles happens in the 7th month. It tells us that the Passover starts on the evening of the 14th day of the 1st month, that the Day of Trumpets is the 1st day of the 7th month, and so on and so forth. So it does give us counts. What the Bible, however, does not tell us, and it may have at one point and it's lost to us, right? But what it doesn't tell us is exactly how to determine what the 1st month of the year is and exactly how to determine what the 1st day of the month is. It's not in the Bible anywhere. There are clues that we can use, right? Like the wave sheaf offering of the barley and things like that. So we know for sure that the 1st month is in the spring, right? Because of that. Now the tradition is, for some people anyway, is to take the first new moon after the spring equinox and begin counting from that point forward the 14 days, and then you come to the Passover. Also, there is controversy about when the new moon is. Is the new moon the dark conjunction? Is the new moon the first sliver? Now, if you look in the book of Enoch, it tells you that the new moon is when the light rises on the moon, which I'm assuming is the sliver, right? Or some people contend that it's the full moon. So there is a lot of controversy about the calendar because it's not laid out concretely in the Bible. And I think this is why, because we're still under this judgment that he's caused the appointed feasts and Sabbaths to be forgotten in Zion. But I will tell you that it will not be forgotten forever, because Isaiah 66 says, starting in verse 22, for as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, says Yahweh, so shall your descendants and your name remain, and it shall come to pass. This is prophecy. We can put it, we can bank on it, okay? This is prophecy. Much of Isaiah's prophecies have already been fulfilled. We know that he was a true prophet. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, all flesh shall come and worship before me, says Yahweh. So we know that we're going to know when the new moon is, and we're going to worship him. We're going to know when the Sabbath is, and we're going to worship. That we know for certain. And if we know when the new moon is, guess what? We will know when the feast days are. And the feast days will continue. Let me just go to the last chapter of Zechariah, which I want so badly to get through this because I want to share with you. I think I was already there. Yes, I am. So I want to share with you a lot that I have found in the book of Zechariah. So it says here, and it shall come to pass that everyone who is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, shall come up year to year to worship the King, Yahweh Sabaoth, and to keep what? The Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, so this is the millennial reign, and we will be keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. So we know that we're going to keep the new moon. We know we're going to keep the feasts. We know we're going to keep the Sabbaths. The problem is that we've lost some of the knowledge for knowing exactly when to do that. And we also know that the Mazzaroth, the calendar in the skies, was much better understood at one point, because we know the kings of the East could perfectly read it, so that they knew the very day that Yahushua HaMashiach was born, just from looking in the skies, looking at his clock. So there is much to be restored to us. So let me just make sure I'm recording again, because like I said, this is my 5th take. Yep, okay, recording. So what she noticed was that on April 20th, which would be the beginning of the next lunar cycle, so the next month, not the month that we're in right now, while we're right now celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles, but the next month. By the way, I also should mention that there is a tradition in the scriptures to be able to celebrate a second Passover for those who were unclean or were traveling during the first Passover and couldn't make it. So that's kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind too. So here we are on April 20th, and the sun, I don't know if you can see these red lines, but that shows us when we have actually entered each constellation. So the sun is just entering the constellation at that point of the Lamb, right? And the Passover is all about the Passover Lamb, the one who saves us, right? So then if we come 14/15 days into the month, okay, the eve of the 14th day going into the 15th day. Anyway, if we go forward, that would be about May 5th. And if we come to May 5th, that's when the moon, we'll check the illumination, is at 100%. Okay? So we have the full moon that's opposite the sun. And look what the moon is highlighting. It is in the constellation of the scales, justice. So wouldn't this be a perfect sign in the heavens to represent the Passover? We have the Passover Lamb who overcame justice, overcame death and hell, saved us from death and hell. That is a perfect representation of the Passover happening on the 14th, going into the 15th day of the month of that's coming up, right? Starting in April 20th. So that's fascinating, because she's right. That is a perfect sign to represent that. Now I want to show you something else interesting about those particular days on the calendar. April 20th, which would be the beginning of that month that has the perfect sign for the Passover occurring. April 20th is a solar eclipse. It is a solar eclipse that's only going to be seen by a very small portion of the world population, which is interesting to me because also those that are going to become the remnant are a very small portion as well. Because one of the things we're looking for at this Passover is the harpazo, right? The catching away, the being saved from wrath. And we know this is going to be, based on scripture, a very small remnant. So I do find it interesting that a very small portion of the world is going to actually see this eclipse, this total eclipse that's going to happen at the beginning of this month. So then the next thing that's interesting is that there will also be a lunar eclipse. And this lunar eclipse is going to occur May 5th to 6th, which would be the Passover and the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles, if it's really next month that all of this is going to occur. And the other thing interesting to me about it is that a large portion of the world is going to see this lunar eclipse, including the Middle East. Then, with that in mind, if we are shifting forward, I'm going to go to this calendar. This calendar is the calendar for the ministers of the New Covenant. And I'm using it because it will represent well what I'm trying to say. So here's the beginning of the current month that we are celebrating, okay, which is the first month of the year. Because remember, Passover happens in the first month of the year. Okay, so starting here, counting 14 days forward, brings us just before the second Sabbath of the lunar month. And that evening is Passover. Okay, so you have Passover and then you come into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But if that is incorrect, and if instead the next month starts here, then we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, going into May, 12, 13, 14. Did I miscount? I think I miscounted. Okay, starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yes. So going from the 14th to the 15th day, right in here, we have the Passover. And here's the lunar eclipse. Passover, lunar eclipse. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. But it's certainly worth exploring. So if that's happening then, okay, so if the first Sabbath is actually, the first month is actually the second month, then we have to do the same thing coming down here, because the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, and Tabernacles is all in the 7th month. So this is what we're now expecting to be the 7th month, starting on September 16th. But if we shift everything forward, then it would really be here in October that the 7th month would occur, around October 15th. And if we come over here, guess what? October 14th, because so this calendar is using, by the way, the sighting. I'm not exactly sure how they're doing it, but this would be the day that the sliver would be seen, would be the 15th. The 14th would be the dark conjunction, okay? So you have the dark conjunction, and then you have the sliver. Now, the dark conjunction is when you will have solar eclipse. Solar eclipse happens when the dark moon covers the sun, okay? So if we come over here, we have another solar eclipse, October 14th. So if we were scooting forward a month to line up with the signs that are in the heavens, okay, then we would have a solar eclipse on the 20th and a lunar eclipse on the 5th to 6th, which would represent the Feast of Unleavened Bread. If we scoot down, the 7th month would then be October, and then we're going to have another solar eclipse. This is the one that goes across America and then down here into part of South America, okay? That's going to happen on October 14th. And then the interesting thing is, if you go 15 days forward, which is when Tabernacles is supposed to occur, that is when this lunar eclipse is going to occur. And not only that, let's go and look on October 14th to October 28th to see what the signs in the heavens are actually telling us is supposed to occur during that time. So this is October 14th, the day that the solar eclipse is going to occur, and it's occurring in the Virgin, which is a representation of the bride of Christ, right? Excuse me. And then if we come forward to the 28th, which is when the lunar eclipse is going to occur. Oops, I went too far. I'm just hauling along, aren't I? Okay, so if we go forward, look, the sun is still, it hasn't crossed the red line yet. It is still in the Virgin, and the moon is in, hang on. I was just adjusting the hours, okay, for more towards the middle of the day, because the moon travels really fast, right? It just hauls along. So around noon would be about the middle of the day. And notice that the moon is in the sign of the Lamb. So we have the Lamb being indicated, and we have the Virgin on that day. On the day that Tabernacles would begin in that month. So those signs are perfect. You have the Lamb coming for his bride. And it makes perfect sense to me. Now, I know that we also have another sign that represents Yahushua Mashiach in the heavens, and that's Leo the lion. But Leo the lion is when he comes as a lion, right? Fiercely in a protection mode. That's not how he's coming. As a matter of fact, we even have a scripture that I was going to share with you, and maybe this is the perfect time. Hang on. So this is Zechariah chapter 9, and what I was going to point out to you with this is that you have a prophecy within a prophecy. Okay, so starting in verse 9, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Okay, so the focus here is the daughter of Zion. And if you go back in my videos, you will find the daughter of Zion in prophecy is not going to be the Jews. Those are a completely separate group of people. These are the ones that are described in Isaiah chapter 1. I'm not going to go through that right now, but I've got a lot of videos highlighting who the daughter of Zion is, okay? Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. So this is a prophecy about the first coming of Yahushua HaMashiach, right? He is lowly and riding on a donkey, and this actually got fulfilled, right? When he went riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, and he was bringing salvation. He was going to work out our salvation in Gethsemane and on the cross. So that already occurred, but it's within a prophecy that has yet to be occur. Let's keep going. I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim. Well, Ephraim, at this point, the northern kingdom had already been dispersed 600 years before the coming of the Messiah, right? So this is now talking about a future reprimand of Ephraim. And the horse from Jerusalem, the battle bow shall be cut off. He shall speak peace to the nations. War was not yet done away with when he came the first time. Okay. His dominion shall be from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. So this, where he is going to take control of the earth and become the king of the whole earth. I mean, I know that he did so, but he hasn't physically done so yet, because Satan is still reigning in the hearts of most of the people on the earth right now. So this is a prophecy within a prophecy. And the reason why I wanted to show it to you now is because the signs that we just saw in the heavens that are going to be shown in October, on October 28th, is the sun is going to be in the Virgin and the moon is going to be in the Lamb, because to his people, okay, he is coming lowly and riding on a donkey. To his people, he is coming as the Passover lamb. He is coming to tabernacle with us. He is coming in love and gentleness and kindness, not as the roaring lion. That is who he's coming to against the enemies of his people. So to summarize, we have, starting in April 20th of this year, we have a pair. We have an eclipse of the sun and then an eclipse of the moon. And the eclipse of the moon would occur if this were the Passover, at the time of the Passover. And the signs that would be shown in the heavens on May 5th and 6th would be the sun in the Lamb and the moon in the scales of justice, which is a perfect lineup for the Passover. And then in what would be the 7th month, October 14th, which would be the Day of Trumpets, you have another eclipse, okay? And on the day that would then be the tabernacles, we have a lunar eclipse, and that the signs that are being shown in that lunar eclipse are the sun is in the Virgin and the moon is in the Lamb. I hope this was useful. I am praying that this recorded properly. Like I said, it's my 5th time to do this one. Blessings and shalom.